what's going on? So, click the links below if you've got, you know, or check the links below, I should say. Marty's always got some killer stuff for you down below. So, anyways, this lesson, we're going to stick on one chord, maybe towards the end, throw in a couple more, but we're really going to work on our right hand. The importance of right hand can never be underestimated, especially when you start to record or, you know, get in a band situation. Palm muting, letting strings ring out, you know, the difference between, you know, instead of washboarding, which means like hitting every string, every strum, and then the difference of taking the top strings versus the low strings, or all that interplay. We're going to go over some of that with one chord and kind of teach you mechanics of right hand rhythm playing. So let's check it out. All right, so with rhythm playing, oftentimes people, you know, they just in the beginning, right? Which is cool, you know, you're making noise, you're having fun, whatever. But as you progress as a player and spend, you know, more years investing in guitar, you start to get the subtle nuances of the right hand come into play, right? Whether it's, you know, learning how to use your pinky to mute out higher strings, or, you know, the interplay between top and bottom strings, right? So like, right? So you're not just, which sounds cool, you know, a big nice power chord, or, you know, open B or G, you know, it sounds great. But when you start doing stuff to a beat or to a rhythm, it's fun to be able to go back and forth between the low and the high strings to get different sounds. So let's see what we can do. So what I'm doing there is I'm doing groups of 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and on the 3 I'm hitting the D and the A string of my E chord right here. So I'm low mute, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, all downstrokes so far. So then what we can do, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? We can take that same thing, stick with those same 3 strings. Then we can do like 1, 2, down, up, 1, 2, down, up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, down, 1, 2, down. Right? Because even though you're hitting the strings at the same time, if you're hitting the D, then the A first, it has a little bit different of a sound, you know? If you really pay attention to players like Eddie Van Halen or any of the great, who, by the way, is one of the best rhythm players ever. But if you watch his hand, he's not always picking downstrokes. A lot of those chords, you hear him, he's doing upstrokes and all this other, you know, interplay with his picking hand. Really, you know, whether it's, you know, really sweeping down the chord really slowly, or catching upstrokes or whatever. Really pay attention to the players, you know, any of your favorite players' right hand, right? So we got R1, 2, down, 1, 2, down. Now what I'm doing is I'm muting, and then I take the mute off. The stab will be no mute. I'm just hitting the A and the D, and then I go right back to muting. So I lift my hand right back. Right? Now you can do the same thing when you use the higher strings. So we can do some mute and then catching up. 1, 2. Now if you'll notice, my pinky comes right back up to catch and cut off those higher strings. Right? You'll hear that kind of stuff sometimes in blues, where they'll hammer onto that third of the E. So I'm not doing much of the muting over here, although you can start to incorporate this hand as well. All of what you're hearing is coming from right here. So I'm going 1, 2, 3. And then instead of doing my, you know, hit, I'm going to hammer on just on the G, and then I'm catching the B and E on an upstroke. Right? Now you can also just pay attention to the bottom 3 strings. You know, you can be like, I'm really muting on this low string, and all the rest I'm hitting the G, B, and E. I'm not, because what's going to happen is you start to record and start to play with the band. There's other instruments like bass, keyboard that takes up a certain register or frequency range in a mix. So a lot of what you can start doing is adding the higher strings, which are treblier, that'll cut through a mix a little bit better. So now you can also do the hammer-on kind of thing. Right? On the, I'm letting it ring through with no mute, and then I'm stopping. Right? So you can incorporate multiple things that we're doing. Now, you know, you can do the same thing with single string arpeggiating chords. So on some of those, I'm going down on the, I'm just doing a straight E major bar chord, 7, 9, 9, 9. So the 9s are on the D, G, and B. You know, and I'm muting. I'm muting that A and the D, and then I'm letting the B and the G ring open. Right? So, you know, let me use a beat as an example. So I'll show you a couple of the techniques we've just done with a beat. Right? So, you know, when it starts coming into a beat, obviously the kick and the snare and all that stuff come into play. Now, if you notice, that's a really simple doom, da, doom, da. So you're hearing the kick and the snare, and then the tss, 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 tss is a hi-hat. So what I'm doing there is I'm playing off of that hi-hat when I do the picking part. If you can just imagine the drummer going tss, 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 right? I'm just playing right along with it. Same thing with the other stuff. Right? I'm playing right along with that hi-hat, and I'm adding a lot of the stabs on a kick or on a snare. Right, so let's hit that beat real quick again. Right, so that's you know, an Apple GarageBand drum loop. It's called I think Modern Drummer, and it's like the first loop or whatever. So you know, I'm sure a lot of you don't have a Mac or whatever, but I'm sure you've got friends that have one. So that loop is great. All you do is you burn the, you know, you open a file, you know, extend it for like a minute or two, and then you have your buddy, you know, burn it to a disc, send it to iTunes and burn it to a disc if you don't have one, and play along with it. A rhythm track, I can't ever stress enough to play to a rhythm track, whether it's you're practicing your scales, right, or doing whatever. You're always going to, if you're ever going to play in a band, be playing in context with timing and a drummer or some sort of time keeper, whether it's a drummer or other musicians playing different instruments or whatever. Timing is everything. So if you can really start to learn how to tighten up your timing and your playing here, you know, it really opens up getting creative here, you know, with your left hand. But the right hand is really where you're going to keep time, you know, when you're playing. So take those basic principles I just showed you and really mess around with it. You know, you could take it from chord to chord. Right? And really work on muting and tightening up and keeping those stabs and punches. What I really like about that one particular drum beat is it has that hi-hat going, so it really helps when you're, you know, starting out with those. You know, don't always just play downstrokes. Either really try to, you know, throw those upstrokes in there too, to that hi-hat and that kick and that snare. So, you know, as always, thank you guys so much for watching, and catch you next time.